Looks like we're live. I'm just gonna do a quick live today. Probably not gonna be on for as long as normal, unless people come and want to hang out. But I know the Super Bowl's in an hour. I feel like I got to keep it with the consistency. That's the biggest thing. It's not so much about the views or anything right now. It's about finding time to fit this into my schedule, being able to stay consistent with this and actually like get better at it because that's really what it's about. I don't care about any of the other stuff right now. It's just about having fun doing this. So I pulled up a few videos today that are gonna be pretty cool. Um the first one I have is a quick summary of the laws of human nature. I was looking for a video that was like the same as the other one that I was doing yesterday. That was like every single law of power. I was looking for that of every single law of human nature, but it looks like he hasn't made one. Maybe we have to just spam his inbox until he does. Maybe we really need to get that video because that's really what I was pissed when I couldn't find it. But yeah, what's up, just one human? And then the other video is mastery, and it's also summarized in 8 minutes. I don't think mastery needs its own like 45-minute video. Would be interesting, but I really think this one does.
The
But yeah.
laws of human nature is stop pointing fingers outside and look at yourself and recognize that you have these qualities.
This is a big facet of Jungian psychology, the idea that the worst traits you see in others, you possess yourself. And until you come to grips with that, you can't get those things in check because it's our own recognition that allows us to change things. It's our own recognition and acceptance that allows us to begin to make changes. But if you're not willing to admit that you struggle with this, if you're not willing to admit that you're jealous, that you're vindictive, that you want revenge, that you want retribution, then we can begin addressing the things. But until you are open to these possibilities, that's where the growth comes from. When you shun something and push it down and pretend like it doesn't exist, it rears its head.
Okay, I want to sort of summarize the laws of human nature, my sixth book, and first just very briefly explain why I wrote that book. I wrote that book because in my consulting work that I do and in the emails I got, I noticed
I think this is his best book by far. It's hard. I genuinely think this is his best book, though. Um, Obviously, the 48 Laws of Power will always be his most famous, but I think this is the most informative, the most beneficial, the most helpful of all of his works.
that people
They're all
were
very
really
interesting, but I
suffering,
think
were
this one's the
really
most
having a lot
applicable.
of problems because they did not understand the people around them. They were making bad decisions, many of the times based on projections of their own desires of what they wanted to see in people. They were hiring.
A lot of people view others through their own eyes. And when you view others through your own eyes, it might work for a lot of people if they're very similar to you, but when someone's very different from you, this is where it leads to lapses in judgment. This is where you will misjudge someone, you will miscalculate something. You need to see everything through the other person's eyes. We're all the hero in our own stories. We all make justifications. We all, in some way, kind of cope to make ourselves not be the villain in the story, always be the hero. And you need to keep this in mind when you deal with other people. Like, people generally don't act out of, um, like, they're not evil to be evil. They're evil because someone has hurt them, or they're evil in the sense that they thought what they were doing was right, but it seems awful to you. Like, there's always some justification, and it's getting to the root of this and seeing that you too have these susceptibilities. You too have these traits, and how dare you judge anyone else?
The worst business partners. They were getting involved with the worst people in romantic relationships. They were having terrible problems dealing with their colleagues, etc. And it was this over and over again. And I thought people have this blind spot. They tend to think that because, it's natural to be social, to interact with people, I'm pretty good at it. But no, it's not true. There's actually an art to it. There's actually things you need to learn about this, and you can become better at, just as you become better at your career, whatever you do, you can be
Your iPad sister screaming, I'm sorry for you.
become a
Is
more
she screaming skibbity toilet or something like that?
enlightened and more effective social animal because we are social animals. So I wrote the book to help people dealing with this problem because when you don't understand human nature, when you don't understand the human animal, it's like you're operating in the dark, you're groping around in darkness, you're tripping, you're falling, you're making all kinds of mistakes. But if you understand human nature, the
It's understanding yourself and understanding others and combining that to deal with people. That's the basis of the book. The basis is understanding where you fall short and understanding where others fall short and being okay with this reality and coming to grips with it and moving forward.
whole thing kind of illuminates and you're able to see people for who they are. You're able to see yourself for who you are. You make much better decisions in life, okay? So there
She's
are two
screaming because my
sides to the
dad took
laws of
screaming because someone took your tablet's kind of crazy.
human nature. You can't ignore one side or the other because if you do, it won't have any value. The first side is yourself. You have to look inward. You have to be willing to introspect. You have to be willing.
It's not introspection for the sake of introspection. It's introspection for the sake of being honest with yourself. And this is something that people don't necessarily do. Like people will look at the past, people will look at the things that have happened to them, and they're not willing to admit that they played a role in it. It's admitting your faults, admitting your downfalls so that you can move past it. Until you admit what's wrong with you, then nothing gets solved. The moment you admit something's wrong with you, the moment you admit that there's something off about you, then you can change it. But you can't change the external world. You can only change the internal.
To face some of the issues and things that you're not good at, some of your own problems, some of the bad elements in your character. And you'll notice that there are 18 laws in the laws of human nature. They cover various different aspects of human behavior: envy, aggression, narcissism, short-sightedness.
Everyone has all these traits in varying degree. And a lot of people won't admit this. A lot of people will admit, I'm not narcissistic. I don't have a shadow. I'm not vindictive. I'm not envious. It's like they might not be active forces in your life, but they have certainly reared their head at some point. And it's coming to grips with this reality. It's coming to the grips with the reality that like you aren't perfect and it's okay. Like we like to think of ourselves in an idealized state. We like to idealize everything. That's just simply how the mind likes to model things. But it's the admission that things aren't perfect and the admission that like we can improve whatever it is that's ailing us. We can move past it. We can accept it and use these things to our benefits. Like there's no such thing as a bad characteristic. It's only a bad characteristic if you define it as a bad characteristic. Whereas like let's say you're not gifted as physically as everyone else. Let's say you're short. Let's say you're overweight. Let's say you're bald. Like, you know what I mean? It's like all of these physical defects can force you to almost overcompensate. It can force you to, study more. It can force you to, become more successful. It can force you to start your own business. Like all of these things can be motivation. All of these things can be like a chip on your shoulder, which in the long run might be a good thing. For some people, it might be a bad thing as well, but it's like it's all about how you view these things. It's the same thing as like getting injured. When you get injured, okay, you're gonna have to stop doing all the physical things you're doing, and you're gonna have to put more time into your studies. You're gonna put more time into your recovery. You're gonna have to find something else about yourself. You're gonna have to discover something new. And when you come back, maybe you fix all the injuries that were bothering you. Maybe you fix everything about your body. Like there's always good with the bad. There's always bad with the good. And it's our understanding of this paradox that really will benefit us and our lives especially.
Our shadow, our dark side, grandiosity, conformity, the whole slew of the 18 deadly human sins that we all have. Your tendency will be, I don't really have those. Oh, no. What's Robert talking about?
He said 18 deadly sins because there's 18 chapters. That's why
I
he
don't
said it.
feel envy. I'm not an aggressive person. I'm not a narcissist. No, that's that person, my friend that I know. He or she, they're a narcissist. Okay, no, sorry. We all come from the same origins. We are
Anytime you say something about someone else's, it's usually a projection. Um, Not always is it so direct as people that are narcissistic call other people narcissistic. Maybe maybe there's a feeling that they're too selfish. They might not actually be narcissists, but like there's some insecurity when it comes to that trait. There's some insecurity when it comes to selfishness. So perhaps it's someone that almost wishes they were narcissistic. Perhaps it's someone that has given the world everything but hasn't gotten anything in return. But it could also just be like simple projection. I don't like when people use the word projection because you can't really tell what's being projected unless you know the person on a individual level. But um sometimes it's directly like, oh yeah, this guy's a narcissist, and it's like it's because I'm a narcissist. That's why I'm calling him that. Like, want to make my own bad characteristics not seem as bad, or it's like subconsciously your mind's telling you what your biggest insecurity is, and it could be something else, but a lot of times it's just direct. But yeah,
We're all evolved from the same human ancestors. Our brains are wired the same way. Yes, some people are more aggressive than others, no doubt. Yes, some people are more prone to envy than others, of course. Yes, there are people out there who are deep, deep narcissists. We all know that. But you have those qualities as well. You can't not because we're all cut from the same cloth. You have it. Maybe it's less obvious.
unless you're like a enlightened person, unless you're Buddha, unless you're Lao Tzu, unless you're Osho or Jesus Christ, like there's countless mythic figures that we can talk about that have transcended humanity, have transcended identity. But until you cease to be yourself, you will always have these characteristics. Now, if you know, prove me wrong and go and destroy your unconscious, destroy your identity, destroy everything about you that ties you to this world, then you won't be a narcissist. Then you won't have any of these characteristics. But till that moment, you will always have human characteristics and they will always rear their ugly head when you don't want them to the most.
Obvious, maybe it's more repressed, but it's in you, okay? The laws of human nature is stop pointing fingers outside and look at yourself and recognize that you have these qualities, that you have a dark side, that you can be short-sighted, that when you have success, it goes to your head and you think you're absolutely wonderful, that you, yes, you are a conformist.
This is I think Gandhi said it best, be the change you want to see in this world. I use this quote all the time, but I think it's so important. I think it's so important to continue to bring it up. Oftentimes when you're pointing the finger at someone else, it's a lack of recognition that you can do something about your situation. Whether it's extremely small, whether you can start making some small gains in some category that's going to make your life better. Like we can all do something each day that's going to make our scenarios, make our situations just a little bit better. But so many people want to point the finger at everyone else. So many people want to join political movements, want to join um, religious causes, this, that, and say, oh, everyone else needs to do something to make the world a better place. It's like, no, you need to do something for yourself to make the world a better place. The change only starts with an individual. The change doesn't start with me telling you what to do. It doesn't start with anything like that. It starts when you look in the mirror, you're discontent with where you are, and you make a change about it. It's that simple. That's the only way change ever has been done and ever will be done. There is no such thing as societal change. There's only individual change. And it's the accumulation of individual changes that make society change. Understand that, and you understand the most important thing ever. To make the changes you want to see in the world, you have to be the change first.
You conform to what other people are thinking and doing. I'm sorry, I did that. Everybody does that. Even the most powerful people in the world have all of these traits. Some of the powerful people have it even worse. Some of the greatest narcissists among us are those with a lot of power, okay? I want you to look inside. I want you to take that microscope, that telescope, and turn it around and look inside of yourself and recognize it. It's not to beat yourself up. It's not to say, I'm a terrible
Feeling good or
person.
bad?
Oh, I'm just awful. I'm so
Peace out.
sorry. I don't even know why I exist.
Have a good night. Thank you for coming and hanging out. It's always good to see you, man. I'm sorry that I don't stream earlier. It's just my schedule is hard to do that right now. But I'll you know when I have more free time, I'll probably do much longer streams. So like if I do like a 5 hour stream, I'll start at like 5 o'clock and end at 10. You know what I mean? It's like when this is like the breadwinner, when this is something that like I can do more consistently, like I will be streaming earlier. Just understand that. Like it's difficult right now because it's not like supporting me financially, but when it is, it's going to be a lot different. It's going to be more streamlined. It's going to be higher production value. It's going to be more fun. There's chat's going to be more active. Like it's things are just looking up, and yeah, just be patient. I'm sorry that I can't give you what you want right now, but yeah, peace out. Have a good night.
No, It's to give you the power, once you recognize these qualities, to change them because they're causing you problems. If you have narcissism and it's a little worse than other people, it's making you say and do things that you're going to regret. It's lessening your options in life. It's narrowing your ability to maneuver in the world because you're always repeating the same problems over and over and over again. It's called compulsive behavior. When you don't recognize these traits in you, you have compulsive behavior.
You keep making the same mistakes until you change them. It's so frustrating, but it's so true. Think of everything that goes wrong in your life. Is it ever something new or is it always the same old, same old? Your relationships keep breaking down because you're not open. Your relationships keep breaking down because of this, because of that. Like, it's never a new issue. It's always just a new set of scenarios, a new set of facts, but it's the same underlying issue. That's the number one cause of issues in our lives is always ourselves. It's always a lack in something that we are not willing to face. And until we face it, these problems will continue to haunt us. These problems will continue to follow us. And it's only upon recognition of this fact that we can begin to actually do anything about it. We can begin to actually understand the problem because you have to understand a problem before you can solve it. You can't just shoot in the dark and expect yourself to hit the target. You always have to define it first. You have to imagine what you can do about it. You need to think in your mind the steps to go about getting over this. You need to get to the root of why you feel this way. A lot of the things that haunt us are like formed in early childhood. It's formed by early experiences. It's formed by an early fear of lack, an early fear that we're not good enough, a fear of like self-sabotage that you don't deserve this, you don't deserve that. Like you've never been good enough your entire life. So like why should you be rewarded with something now? Like these are all things that plague us and these are all things that keep us unhappy. And once you realize that all these issues are caused by yourself, then you can fix them. Until you realize this, though, it same old's going to happen. And that's the sad reality of it. Like most people won't realize it, but if you realize it, you can fix yourself, and you can be the inspiration to help others find the solution. Find the solution that every answer is in the self. Every answer is there. You just need to be patient. You need to be willing to relax and sift it out. It's there. You just need to find it. Inside our heads is the information for absolutely every issue, every problem, every dream that we have, and we just need to be receptive and open to it.
Repeat them over and over and over again. So it's not to beat yourself up, it's to recognize that yes, Robert Greene, I feel envy towards people. All right, I recognize it. Now what can I do to change
Say
that?
this more
Well,
for a
in
second.
each chapter I discuss that, okay? It gives you the power to change yourself. And I have a quote in there from the writer Chekhov saying, you cannot begin to change yourself unless you.
You cannot begin to change yourself unless you know who you are. This is a beautiful quote. This is the idea that like you have to understand that your experiences shape everything about you, good and bad. And the older experiences that you're still clinging on to is keeping you stuck. For me, for the longest time, like my dad was always the approach of like tough love. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but for me, it like was something I couldn't understand, especially at a young age as a child. And really what it was with my dad, like saw I had a lot of potential and I wasn't living up to it. And he just wanted me to aspire to be as great as I could. But I never heard compliments growing up. I never heard I was good enough. No matter how many goals I scored, no matter how many points I scored, I was never good enough. There was no such thing as enough. And even when I started to get that recognition, it still wasn't enough because it was ingrained in me as a child to not accept anything less than perfection. And like, it's only through deep reflection that I can understand this. And it's only through deep reflection and acceptance of this fact that, like, when I see myself being too hard on myself, when I see myself getting upset that things aren't working out perfectly, like, take a step back and observe all the progress I've made. Observe all the good I've done. Observe all the accomplishments I have and see how far I've come instead of aiming for perfection, instead of needing to be perfect. And that was such a fundamental breakthrough for me. And it instantly dropped like half the anxiety, half the stress, half the fear I held about myself. Don't get me wrong, these things are still there because they were forced into me as a child. They were forced upon me as a kid, and these were realities that I faced every single day. But like, it's only upon acceptance and deep introspection that we can become honest with ourselves and we can change these things. When we view our past differently, we begin to become different. It's William James, the father of American psychology, said, "Attitudes are more important than facts." And this is a beautiful quote because it's simply saying that like you can have the exact same scenario, but people take it in different ways. And I want you to take it in the good way. I want you to always aspire to be better. I want you to always aspire to see the good in everything because there's people who drink because their parents were alcoholics, and there's people who will never drink because their parents were alcoholics. The exact same circumstances can create something uplifting or something that is brutal, detrimental, and will hold you back from becoming all you can be. And it's always recognizing this reality. It's always recognizing that no matter how bad, there's always good. No matter how awful, there's always something. Like the worst experience just shows you that you have the strength that most people don't have. And at the very least, that's something you can cling to. So what was the essence of combat? If you look at the greatest warriors ever, it's fluidity. It's the ability to use the right tactic at the right time. Um, I don't like John Jones as a person. I think he's a terrible human being, but John Jones does what he needs to do to win. John Jones isn't going to get a brutal knockout, but he's going to strike with the wrestler. He's going to wrestle the striker. Same thing as George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre is going to do better at what you do worse. Every great fighter, every great you know, whether it's a warrior, whether it's a MMA fighter, whether it's even the samurais, like it wasn't about rigidity. It wasn't about reliance on one strategy. It was about mastering all of them and using them as the time see fit. It's the Bruce Lee quote, be like water, conform to your surroundings. When you have a set of circumstances that's going to benefit one strategy, use that. When you have a set of circumstances that's going to benefit another, use that one. That's it.
You know who you are, okay? So if you don't know who you are and yet you want to become a better person, it's hopeless because you're not willing to look at yourself. So look at yourself deeply. It's painful, but it's incredibly productive. The second half of the laws of human nature is the outward look. It's seeing into other people. Okay, once you understand that you have these qualities, and you can begin by looking at other people, it doesn't matter, but you have to do these two sides. You look at other people and you see these qualities in.
One of the funniest parts of the laws of human nature was it, I still laugh about it every time I remember it. But basically, it was a chapter saying that like the dumbest person you know thinks they're smart in some way. So like think about it, like you're the least informed, least intelligent person has a subject that they can go on about for hours upon hours upon hours. They also have the mindset that like I might not be college educated, but I can really tell you about politics because I have a grounded perspective. Even if their grounded perspective is they get their news from like the most biased source on Twitter, the most conspiratorial source on Twitter. You know what I mean? It's like everyone has their own angle. Everyone thinks that whatever they believe is right. Everyone's the hero in their own story. And it's like you have to confirm their biases. You have to confirm what they believe about themselves. And if you can do this, you can kind of just get a better end of the deal. So if somebody's very, oh yeah, I'm the strongest, I'm the toughest, I'm this, I'm that, like just go along with it. See what happens. It's so funny when you start playing around with these ideas because like I have a friend that like he's a smaller guy, but like he's a power lifter, so he's all about like his strength. And if you just like agree with him on his strength, he's like he'll just like be so much nicer to you versus if you like challenge him. It's actually so funny to see these things in action. And it's not like I don't do any of these things for like pure manipulation. I do these things to like learn how to deal with people better because I'm someone that for most of my life I've been like a very difficult person, and like thought it was always part of my charm, but it's like it's not it's not really the best approach for every setting. It's the best approach to make friends. It's the best approach to like have genuine connections in a social setting, but like in a business professional setting, that's not how you should operate. That's not how you should be. And like through reading this book, it's given me like tools and tips to really tame that more boisterous side of my personality, and it's fun. It's interesting.
In them. You don't like look at them for what you want to see. So a lot of the problems that you have in life is, for instance, somebody who's a narcissist, they're very good at charming you and saying, "Oh, you're so wonderful, love, they like you, they give you attention." You're drawn into their world and then they proceed to use you. Then they proceed to hurt you. Or you hire somebody because they have a charming, pleasing exterior and they're incompetent, they're stupid, they're lazy. You didn't see that. You have problems because you don't see clearly into the people around you. You don't see their own.
We like to perceive people through our own eyes. We like to idealize them instead of seeing the real, true self. And it's putting ourselves in other people's shoes that kind of gets us past this idea.
Dark qualities, okay? The second half is you look at people divorced from your emotions, divorced from your projections, divorced from what you want to see them. You look at them in the real light of who they are. It's not to make you paranoid. It's not to make you misanthropic or hate people. It just makes
Not to say people can't redeem themselves, not to say that people can't change who they are, but one of the best rules of thumb is don't judge people off what they say, judge them off what they do. And again, there's a lot of people that have done a lot of terrible things that have repented for it, that have overcame these things, that have forgiven the people that have hurt them, that have tried to ask for forgiveness for the people who they have hurt. And like, if you undergo that process, I'm not saying this is for you, but like for the vast majority of people, judge them by how they act. If you have a friend that's like a really good friend of yours, but he only texts you to go out on the weekends, he only texts you to go drink. He doesn't ask how you're doing. He doesn't ask anything else about you. Is that a friend or is that just someone that doesn't want to be alone at a club? Like this is something that like not saying that like I lost friends recently about this, but like this is something that I had to face when I was in college. This is something that I had to face when I was like I was in a fraternity and like most of the people I thought were my friends early off, but like after I kind of got away from that scenario, after I kind of stopped hanging out at the house, I was like, wait, like I don't even like most of these people. Most of these people don't like me. Most of these people were only friendly to me because I was in a similar environment. And it's like it's something we really need to start grasping and it's something that we really need to start paying more attention to because time and time again we're too trusting of people and time again we have our trust broken by these people and you can only have your trust broken so many times before you're jaded. It's very difficult for people to overcome this. It's very difficult for people to be betrayed X amount of times and ever open themselves up, ever be accepting that they can trust people. And it's like I was so closed off from trusting people until very recently, and it's like it's something that plagued me for such a long time. It's like I don't want you to go through the same thing because not being able to trust anyone is it's truly the worst feeling in the world. It really is. It makes you feel like it's you versus the world. It makes it you feel like you can't go to people with certain issues. You can't talk about certain issues with certain people because you're vulnerable. You don't want to be vulnerable with people that are going to betray you. And it's really awful. I don't wish that on my worst enemy.
should be able to make better decisions in life, to see the toxic people out there. I believe 5% of the people you deal with are genuinely toxic. I just pull that number out of you know where, but that's what my evidence is. Okay.
I think it's a pretty fairly decent number. Some people like the vast majority of people that screw you over, it's not through any selfish like it's not because they hate you, it's not because they genuinely want to hurt you. It's usually because of a selfish interest. It's usually because of they just don't know how to handle things. They just don't know how to be a good person because nobody's been a good person to them. There are a certain amount of people in this world who are like you could say are truly evil. I mean, granted, you go back to it, it's really just like a messed up childhood. It's really just messed up things happening to them. But like they, it's almost the Vegeta mindset. It's like the world hasn't been nice to me, so I'm going to be evil to the world. That's what he's talking about. Like the 5% of people, the 5% of people that are actually wicked. The rest of the people are just people trying to live good lives, and they don't understand how much they've hurt you or how much they have in some way, broken your trust.
Okay? You're dealing with them all the time. But toxic people don't go around with a little neon sign saying, I'm toxic, I have a lot of envy, I'm narcissist. They disguise it. Okay? The ability to recognize, to say that person has a toxic personality. I'm not going to get in a relationship with them. Do you realize how much drama and how much pain that will simply save you in life? I can't emphasize it enough. Not involving yourself with one nasty person in your life can save you years of trauma.
It's so bad. Um, you see it in everybody. It could be in a friend, it could be in a relationship, it could be your parents, it could be a sibling. Like just dealing with toxic people, just it messes you up in so many ways. And it's not even toxic people like being evil people. It's people that have unresolved issues that are so bad that they can't help but take it out on others because that's the only way the mind can cope with it. The mind can only cope with it by believing that it's an evil world and I need to get my way or anything else matters. It's a very sad way to live life. And it's a very awful existence. But it's really just people that are unwilling to admit that, like, okay, horrible things have happened, but there's still a lot of good in the world. That's really what it comes down to. It's like there's certain people that believe the bad outweighs the good in this world, that there's nothing to aspire to, that there's nothing to look up to. And it's like, I hope you know, however much bad there is in the world, there's equal amounts of good. Like this is a thing that's been understood for thousands of years. It's the idea of yin yang. It's the idea of polarity. It's the idea of balance. I mean, like, think about it. Like, there's positive and negative magnets. There has to be the equal amount of positive and negative magnets in the world, or it's going to be thrown out of balance. Like everything needs to fall in order, or there's chaos. And the order is working on such a grand scale that oftentimes we can't perceive it. Oftentimes it doesn't make sense until after the fact. And like you have to understand, like everything is an ebb and flow. The moment that you smile and say, "This is the happiest day of my life," the next day is immediately worse. Okay, the next day is already the start of a decline, and that's just the natural order of things. But it's how it should be. Like, what is happiness without ever having ever suffered pain? Happiness without suffering pain is nothing because you don't appreciate it. It's the appreciation, it's the gratitude, it's the presence that make our greatest moments the greatest moments. Think of the happiest time you can think of. I bet you it's a lot simpler than you can think. I bet you it was probably you just spending time with someone that means the most to you, or you doing an activity that means a lot to you, and you weren't worried about your bills. You weren't worried about your house. You weren't worried about your car. You weren't worried about the check engine light or the friend that had betrayed you. It was always the only thing you were focused on was the present moment, and you were appreciating it no matter how fleeting that experience was. It's very, very simple, yet we like to overcomplicate things. We like to allow our mind to run and our mind to run in a million different directions. And let me tell you something. Your mind is a tool. Your mind isn't you. Your mind is simply your body recognizing patterns. Beyond your mind is your soul, and your mind will often take the wheel and tell you what's right, tell you what's wrong. And we become over reliant on this idea. We believe that our mind is always correct. We believe that everything that we hear is always the truth. That is not the case. Your mind, your mind is simply observant of things that have happened up until now, but that doesn't mean it's solidified. That doesn't mean it's set in stone. You can always change it. You can always change your thoughts. You can always change your perception. And there, in fact, you can change your perception enough to change the thoughts and the ideas and the images and the emotions that you hold to your experiences. It's very simple when you break it down this way, but it's very complex to do it in existence.
Years of therapy. So I want you to be able to look at people in this dispassionate light and analyze them through the 18 laws of human nature and analyze yourself. If you only analyze yourself, you're kind of wobbly. You don't understand, It's not good. You're still going to be making mistakes. If you only look at other people, you're ignoring your own qualities, and that's also a problem. If you have these two sides, I guarantee you, you will be a superior social animal. You will understand human nature, and you will navigate this world with much more grace and much more ease with all the.
If this doesn't inspire you to read the laws of human nature, I don't know what will. I genuinely think it's one of the best books to read if you're only going to read one book ever. I don't say that lightly. Um, I've read a lot of great books. I've read a lot of things that like have given me deep spiritual insights, but like if you were to read one book and get the most bang for your buck, I think it's either this or How to Win Friends and Influence People. How to Win Friends and Influence People is just so boring though. It has great fundamental truths from it, but I think you need to parse it more carefully. You need to break down parts more carefully, and you'll see it time and time and again in different aspects of things, whether it's a self-help book, whether it's a mindset book, whether it's a communication book, whether it's a psychology book, whether it's a manipulation book. Like there's so many aspects to how to win friends and influence people, but it's I don't think you're going to necessarily grasp all the lessons until you go back through other works and then check back into the original source. But Laws of Human Nature has it all. It truly does. I think it's a book that I need to go back through to possibly talk about more because I've talked about it a lot on my channel. I've gone through every single chapter, but maybe it's time that we go through it some more. Maybe it's time that I write actual notes for each chapter. I summarize them more and I do it all in a presentation format. Maybe that's something I need to start doing. An idea that I had that I was going to do, I just have to sit down and do it. Is I was going to go through Emerson's Self Reliance. I was going to highlight certain passages, certain quotes, and certain things, and I was going to basically explain the premise of it, basically explain the important aspects of it, and like really urge everyone to pick up Emerson themselves. But I think we're getting to the point where like normal book reviews might not be enough. Um, I can keep reviewing books, I can keep going through books, but I think at a certain point it's like we got to get to the deeper root of things. We got to get to the deeper, more complex aspects of these books. Like one of the videos I'm going to film in the next few days is going to be on the symbolic ending of 1984, why it's so significant, why it's so deep, why it's so introspective, why it is so important, especially nowadays. And like I think that's gonna be a really fun video to do, and I want to do more stuff like that. So while I do like reviewing books, saying like this is a good book, this is a bad book, I think I'm gonna start doing more like in-depth stuff because it's gonna be more fun. It's gonna be more cool. Like I don't know. I like to constantly improve. I like to constantly change things I'm doing. I like to pursue different things. Certain things get boring, certain things get repetitive. I don't like to stick to one thing. That's just who I am as a person. I'm about constant growth. But yeah, how long am I streaming for? I think I'll do um we'll start this video. We'll see if it's a good video. If it's not a good video, then I'll just sign off because I got stuff I gotta do today. And I don't know if anyone's here right now. So yeah, I don't even know if people watch these back. Let me know if people watch these back, like comment. Because I'll put more effort into like thumbnails and descriptions and stuff like that. I'll find a way to clean it up and make it look better. But yeah, I don't know if anyone actually watched it. So
But different mindset. I want you to go against the tide of the 21st century and develop mastery. I wrote a book. It came out, I think, 10 years ago now, maybe 9 years ago, called Mastery.
I think this is his second best book. And just because it's such a fun topic, the basic premise of the book is that every single great individual throughout history followed the same pattern, and he's mapping this pattern for you so that you can step out on your own, so that you can become the next Tesla, the next Edison, the next Einstein. Like it's not about copying what people do to get you know, get the traditional career path, 4 years in the office, and then, you just with their way into old age. Like it's not that. It's about redefining things, redefining culture, redefining society, creating something that's so new that it changes our conception of old ideas. That's the idea of mastery. It's like pure creativity, pure expression, and doing it in an innovative way for the betterment of mankind.
Is my fifth book, and it's a very, very important book, and I'm going to summarize it for you. I'll just say first that the reason it's so important is a lot of people nowadays are very undisciplined. They think because of their phones and because of technology, they can get whatever they want just by clicking, just by pointing their finger, and it kind of carries over into all aspects of life. And I want you to develop.
So mastery is basically about creativity, and he's keying on something very important. The greatest works of creativity only come from pure attention, pure, unfiltered attention. If I pick up my phone right now and I go on Instagram for 10 minutes, if I go on X for 10 minutes, if I go on, I don't have TikTok on my phone anymore, but if I did have TikTok and I go on for 10 minutes, for the next 20 minutes, I'm not as focused as I would be if I just didn't take that break. Even if I just took a break and walked around, I didn't distract myself from the task. I didn't overload my mind with sensory information that really isn't relevant to what I'm trying to do. And it's this idea that like the ancient Egyptians were much smarter than us in a perception way because they sat with their own thoughts. And this is what allowed them to create the pyramids that are so perfectly set to this day that you can't slide a piece of paper in between the stones. That's how meticulous these people were. That's how attention or detail oriented these people were. And it's only through pure attention that you can achieve these things. It's only through pure focus that these states can be achieved and these states can be prolonged and they can be used for creative expression. That's really the secret of creativity. The secret of creativity is allowing yourself to relax, allowing yourself to focus on something and letting the idea come to you. Great ideas aren't thought, they're discovered. They just pop in your head. Anything that I've written that is inspiring, I don't have a plan for it. It just comes out. I write the title and then everything else follows. Like I'm writing something right now that if you read, you're gonna be like, how did someone write this? Like truly that's the level of this thing. And it's like, it's not me. Something's speaking through me, like some force, some essence, some part of myself that can't be understood, that can't be seen is writing these thoughts, writing these ideas, putting these things into a coherent um medium and making it moving. Like I'm gonna read this back and be like, this is me, this is kind of crazy. You know what I mean? It's like that's the idea of it. That's the essence of it. And that's what we need to rely upon more and more every day because this is gonna be the ending thought that I leave you on because this is gonna be something that's very um it's really gonna hit you. It's really gonna motivate you. Stop worrying about doing what everyone else is doing. We've all heard the job market's screwed. We all heard like it's so hard to get a job. And why do you think? Because everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's resume looks the same. Oh, I have my GPA on this. I have my job experience. They all have like arbitrary job roles, arbitrary tasks that they did at their last job. And like so much emphasis is put on the resume, on the process, on all these things. But it's like, dude, you just need to get your foot in the door. And once you get your foot in the door, that's a lot of it. Like if you just get your foot in the door in enough places, you're going to get a job. Find a creative way to do that. Find a way to get your resume past those AI bots. Find a way to get in contact with someone that can get you that opportunity. Like I'm not really one for networking, but like that's really the best way to get a job nowadays. It's not through LinkedIn, it's not through Monster.com, it's not through Indeed. All of these websites are just going to filter you. They're just going to put you through an AI. If you don't match certain criteria, they're not going to offer you these things. You're not going to get an interview. Like it's just about getting your foot in the door. Stop worrying about what everyone else is doing and do something different. Do you know what I mean? Find someone at your gym that is in your field. Ask them questions. That's most of it. If you show genuine interest in someone that's in your field, you've already surpassed so many people. One time I was at a job fair like 2 years ago, and I was talking to a guy, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. You do real estate. Like, do you have your own holdings? Do you have your own things? Like, how do you balance this? How do you do all this thing?" And like I'm having a great conversation with this guy, and this other dude that I know, what's in the conversation is like, so how much do you work? What about that? Like he's like asking the most boring questions possible. It's like you need to be unique. Treat people like people. I know it's so ironic to say, but like if you treat people like people, that's gonna get you the furthest nowadays. Everything is so corporatized. Everything is so corporate speak. Everything is so hollow, so unimpressive, so boring that if you just simply act like a human being nowadays, if you simply show genuine interest and care about people, that's gonna take you the furthest. It really is, and it's really that simple. Find the creative approach. Stop caring about what other people are doing. Do your own thing. Redefine the game. It's what Jobs did. It's what Tesla did. It's what Edison did. It's what everyone that we remember as intelligent individuals did. Yet we're all told that intelligence comes from the school system. We're all told that intelligence comes from doing what everyone else did and doing it in the exact same way and expecting a extraordinary result. Does that make sense to you? Doing the same thing as everyone else and looking for a different result, does that make sense? Doesn't make sense to me. But you know what? Prove me wrong. I don't think you can. Maybe you can work your way up. Maybe after 40 years you can get to that extraordinary thing, but it's like how much time could you have saved? We always say work smarter, not harder. That's what I want you to do. I want you to use your creativity, use your higher faculties, use your ability to socialize, use your ability to act like a normal human being and don't act like a fucking robot. It's very frustrating to me that we go to the school system, we go through the school system for most of our lives, and we're taught to obey. We're taught to be a robot. We're taught to become a machine. We're not taught interpersonal skills. We're not taught soft skills. We're not taught any sort of thing that allows us to present, that allows us to persuade, that allows us to do anything aside from recite facts. And we wonder why we can't get a job. Work on those interpersonal skills. Work on those skills that will set you apart from everyone else. I'm telling you, no one is reading books. No one is working on creativity. No one is working on expression. No one is working on oratory. No one is doing it for the sake of their own improvement either. They're doing it to get to an end. I want you to improve yourself for the sake of yourself. When you improve yourself for the sake of yourself, then you become yourself. Everyone's improving for the sake of money, for the sake of women, for the sake of a house, for the sake of a car. Like, do it for the sake of yourself, and it's authentic. And when you're authentic, and when you're an improved version of your authentic self, that's where all the answers come. I'm gonna leave it there because I think that's a pretty good way to leave it. I'm not even sure if anyone's here right now, but if you are, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. Real quick, we all have to root for the Eagles today. No, you don't have to root for the Eagles, but I think they're going to win. I think it's going to be a fun game. So if you're if you're watching the game with your family, don't don't put too much emphasis on the game. Put more emphasis on the people you're spending the time with because that those are the people that really mean the most. Like win or lose, I'm going to spend time with my family, and that means more to me than any Super Bowl title. Like I'm going to remember the smiles. I'm going to remember the party, even if the Eagles lose. I don't care about that. Like care about the people in your life. Don't care about the external factors, and let them know how much they mean to you. I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I will catch you in the next one. Yeah, pretty fun stream today. Yeah, bye.